We are well underway into summer box office season, and Disney has had three big projects come out in the early goings: an MCU project, a Disney project, and a Pixar project. And all three of them look like they could have had problems at the box office. Fortunately for them, great word of mouth pretty much saved Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the only thing in MCU Phase 5 that was guaranteed to probably do well. It ended up doing pretty damn well. Looks like Disney's The Little Mermaid is having a little bit more trouble. Actually, the domestic numbers are fine. It should be doing all right. But it turns out they turned off an enormous component of their overseas customers, and it didn't get supported mostly in Asian audiences for reasons that have been talked about. Apparently, according to Disney, calling all Chinese and Korean people racist is the way to fix the problem. Pretty stupid business, if you ask me. That'll kind of play into what I'm going to talk about. The last one that was coming out that looks like it's going to be the really, really big flop is going to be Elemental from Pixar. And I believe there are like 2 or 3 reasons for this happening. And it looks really bad, actually, once you get into the numbers. It looks like they've got another enormous box office flop. The Disney brand is damaged. The Pixar brand is extremely damaged. They can't even give movies away anymore. And the excuses that just keep coming out of Hollywood and the entertainment media are absolutely hilarious. They'll never mention Disney turned off their core fan base. You know, actual families, traditional families, and not just in America. We're talking families worldwide have been turned off to Disney, and it takes enormous word of mouth for even a movie like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 to succeed these days, because the Disney brand itself is absolute garbage, and somehow the Pixar brand is even worse. This is what Variety report. Elemental, an animated adventure about opposites who attract, is aiming to collect just $35 million on its opening weekend. Those projected ticket sales are rivaling 2015's The Good Dinosaur with $39 million and 2020's Onward also with $39 million, as the worst starts in Pixar's modern history. Even if the film hits the $41 million highest estimation marks that are out there, it will have the worst opening of any Pixar-produced film ever when dollar figures are adjusted for inflation. According to the numbers, if 3 Pixar films with the worst opening weekend box offices are Toy Story with $29 million, and then the other 2, Onward and Good Dinosaur. Obviously, Toy Story came out like when I was still in high school. So we're talking over 25 years ago, and there's been such a huge string of hits from Pixar that it almost felt like they just couldn't be touched. That they could actually fail to this degree with an animated film really wasn't conceivable even 3 or 4 years ago. But they've absolutely destroyed their brand recognition. They're making movies about girls having their period and stuff like this. Those are the types of movies that families just aren't willing to go and pay money for, and a lot of times just aren't really comfortable taking their kids to go see a movie based on, you know, a premise like that, a plot like that. It's just not family friendly anymore, even though all the animation and the stories that are being told are supposed to be geared specifically at families. And Disney and Pixar literally have no one but themselves to blame for all of this. They're the ones that have actually destroyed their own reputation with the American family, with the worldwide family, in believing that you can actually take your kids to go see a Disney Pixar film, you know, in theater and actually not be mortified by the end of it. And maybe this one's just me. Maybe this one is just me. Was anyone else confused when they saw the trailer? I finally got to go to the movies. Yes, there isn't a movie theater in my town, but I went on vacation. The Elemental trailer goes up before the Spider-Verse movie, and it looks like it's a sequel to Inside Out, but the characters grew up or something. They probably should have done something to more differentiate the look and feel of those characters compared to the Inside Out movie, which is absolutely phenomenal. But if we're getting an Inside Out sequel, I want to see the same characters. I don't want to see grown-up versions of them to where like they're going through stuff like that. Was anyone else confused? Maybe I'm the only one stupid enough that saw that and was like, is this Inside Out but old? That would be a weird choice. There's another thing that I think is going on here that I believe they're trying to target an audience with a story that probably isn't going to resonate with them anyway. Directed by Peter Sohn, Elemental is set in a world inhabited by anthropomorphic elements of nature who don't always blend well together. The story revolves around the friendship between fire element Ember and water element Wade, who discover they actually have more in common than meets the eye. Director Peter Sohn revealed he inserted himself and his wife into the characters, stating, "I started layering in my relationship with my wife. I'm Korean, and she's American, half Italian. I hid the relationship from my parents at first because they, in an old school way, wanted me to marry someone Korean. My grandmother's dying words were literally marry Korean." And as somebody that has lived in Asia for several years and specifically lived in Korea, I absolutely believe that. But I don't know that a lot of Americans have ever really experienced that. I'm 45. My older brother is 48. My younger brother is 42. My older and younger brother are married to black women. I'm married to an Asian woman. We're from a small town in Missouri that was basically all white. You know what kind of like brushback we got for marrying outside of our race in America? Like as Gen Xers? None. No one cared. It's not really something like that type of idea really isn't going to be something that resonates with a lot of people, even my age. And I'm in my 40s, and we're like 3 generations past that with kids, obviously that are in between the ages of like 5 and 12 that this are aimed at. And that's going to be a completely foreign concept to them, to where their parents are saying, we don't want you to marry anyone or date anyone outside of your race. Certainly, there are going to be younger people like in a Japan, in a Korea, or like in a Saudi Arabia or something like that, where you have more closed off societies where, yes, you will get pressured by your family. I mean, I believe there's still arranged marriages in a lot of places in the world. But in America, that's not really a thing anymore. Pretty much everyone seems to be dating or marrying outside of the race. It's not really a big deal. It's not something that you really take into consideration when you start dating someone. Like, well, she's really nice, but she's not really the right race. That's not something that really happens with people my age for the most part, let alone little kids. So I understand that Peter Sohn is trying to tell a story that resonates with him and his experience with life, but that's not really going to resonate with the people they're actually aiming the movie at. Unless all of a sudden, like Saudi Arabia becomes an enormous Pixar kids movie like audience, which I don't see happening, and I certainly don't see the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia approving of that type of message. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these societies, they're just different. They operate different. But once you start talking about like Europe and America and places like that, it just isn't a thing. So I think Disney and Pixar are probably targeting the audience with the wrong story that's going to resonate with them, because most kids are going to see something like that and they're like, I could never imagine that happening. Is this supposed to be something I can relate to? Because that's what it sounds like the director is trying to put into the story. And plus, we've had a lot of stories like that. I don't know what Disney and Pixar were thinking. They need to do something, to fix their brand. They need to do something to ingratiate themselves with the family audience. And if that's what the story is about, I don't think people are going to be upset. But it is Disney and it is Pixar and it is 2023. And I imagine there's going to be a lot more than meets the eye than they're telling you right there in the actual movie itself. And to be quite frank, as someone with an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, I'm going to need to see Elemental first before I even allow my children to see it. And I wonder how many parents feel like that, not just in America, but around the world now, with the way that Disney has operated over the past 5 years or so. And they just turned so many people off, and they've really almost made themselves a toxic brand to families themselves. It's really strange how they've actually managed to do this, and no one really wants to acknowledge like what's happening with the Disney brand, what's happening with the Pixar brand. Over and over, you hear the same excuses from multiple different sites. Like it's it's like bullet points that are sent out to them even before the movie comes out. This is what Box Office Pro has to say. As other animation brands such as Illumination and Sony have become more popular among young moviegoers, and as Disney recovers from its pandemic-era straight-to-streaming strategy for many family movies, including 3 recent Pixar releases, Turning Red, Luca, and Soul, Elemental might not have the kind of robust upfront audience interest garnered by earlier Pixar films based on original IP. Can we stop with the pandemic excuses for Disney? The reason this is happening, the reason that Lightyear bombed, the reason that Elemental has bombed is because Disney is a toxic brand of families. That is what happened. They ruined their relationship to their most important audiences worldwide, and nobody trusts them anymore. It has nothing to do with them putting movies direct to streaming on Disney Plus. If Elemental looked amazing and people knew that Pixar movies were must see and you wanted to see it opening day, families would be in movie theaters doing that, because that's normal behavior. We've seen so many family-inclusive films blow up since the pandemic has happened, like you can't really use it as an excuse anymore. And then, of course, they're talking about original IP. Well, what about Lightyear? That's only associated with Toy Story, one of the most influential, financially lucrative family brands in the entire world. It's associated with Toy Story, yet Disney went out there, and the director of Lightyear went out there and poisoned the well and letting people know this might not be as family-friendly as the past Toy Story films what we put out. And maybe you probably shouldn't see it, or maybe you need to go and watch it before you let your kids watch it. And it's no surprise that Elemental obviously is having that blowback, and it doesn't look like The Flash is going to do very well. But somehow Elemental's actually bombing worse this weekend than the Flash movie. The Flash movie is going to make about twice as much on the opening weekend, or it's projected to, as Elemental. Flash cost $250 million to make. Elemental cost $200 million. They need to make back like $500 or $600 million worldwide to even turn a profit on this movie. They're going to lose $100 million, if not $200 million likely on this, unless it blows up worldwide. And I'm not seeing anything that makes me think that that's going to happen, especially when you look at what happened to Lightyear and a lot of the other Disney productions that we've seen lately. Strange World bombed, The Little Mermaid bombed, and I'll be shocked if Elemental doesn't also bomb at the worldwide box office when it comes to overseas viewers. It's absolutely insane what Disney has done to themselves, what Pixar have done to themselves, the way that they have ruined that relationship between the American family, the worldwide family, and their products in a whole. I've talked about this for a long time. I do want to point you out to this conversation I had a couple of years ago with Kneon from Clownfish TV. Obviously, he used to work at Disney. He covers them very extensively. And we talked about how Disney, it's no longer about customers. It's no longer about the family movie-going experience. It's really all about the agenda, and it trumps everything. It trumps you. It trumps me. It trumps our families. It trumps everything, and that's why nobody trusts this brand anymore. If you haven't seen this video, definitely check it out right now. There's also a link in the video description.